Let's now walk towards selling the company. How did this even come about? So you built this business, you felt really good, the margins are great. Why did you decide to go through the process, and how did it even come about? How did they reach you?
So I thought these were people prank calling me. I think this gentleman who was head of acquisitions probably called me 3 times. It was on the third occasion that I didn't hang up on him, that I did start to listen to him, that I had verified that they had bought other businesses, specifically the HVAC business that kind of took my business in, and that this guy was real. And I don't know what the economic environment is like now, but they offered me almost 12 times my EBITDA. And that's unheard of. That's like crazy, crazy money. So we were doing really well, and I was living a really, really nice life. But at that time, what I was offered was game changing money. I literally overnight became a newly minted multimillionaire. And that to me seemed really, really attractive. I was offered above and beyond that initial buyout, what's referred to in the business as an earnout. So for 2 years, I was to work for the company that bought mine. And that's where I really learned my true business life lessons. And that is that no amount of money can replace the calm, the security, the confidence that a business owner gets from being in control of that business. And just about every single thing that they said that they were going to do was not followed. It became, with all due respect to them, an absolute nightmare. And I remember my brother saying, Dan, I don't care if they ask you to pick up wire nuts off the bathroom floor, suck it up for your earnout. And there are some people that can do that. There are some people that are so corporate that they can just follow along like a robot. And I am just not that person. So I actually structured a deal with them where I received my first year's earnout and a portion of the second year's earnout for me to leave a year early. And really, in that 1 year that I worked there and essentially watched them, for all intents and purposes, kill everything that I worked so hard to build. We lost all but 10% of my book. I spent that year looking from Portugal to Mexico for a place to take my family and have a bit of a different experience, because I lived in the same town for, 37 years. So that's how I ended up in Costa Rica.
I hear you loud and clear. It sounds like, looking back, you wouldn't have done the deal. You have regrets that maybe you could have just put a management team in place, lived out some of your family's dreams in Costa Rica, and continue to own and cash flow the business. What can our listeners glean from that, and how should they be thinking about protecting themselves as they're potentially moving towards selling their company? What would you have done differently? Let's just say you decided to go through with it anyway. How would you have negotiated that differently, or how would you have thought differently about who bought your company?
That's a great question. I think, and by the way, I had a great attorney. I really, truly did. But we're dealing with a multi-billion-dollar, company that really stuck to their guns and had a team of attorneys, so on and so forth. So I guess my first piece of advice would be something that, once again, my father taught me, and that is defer liability, especially when it's something, when it concerns something that you are not an expert in. So if you don't know how to structure that purchase agreement, if you don't know how to structure a shareholders agreement, things like this, you better have a good attorney that kind of, for lack of a better term, holds you back and says, wait a second, Dan. And by the way, my attorney did. There's this internal and external struggle with, should I sell? And it always came down to that 12 times EBITDA, 12 times EBITDA, 12 times EBITDA. And it blinded me to these little asks, if you will, in the asset purchase agreement, and these little, promises in the asset purchase agreement that I ignored because the money was so good. So if I had any advice to give, stick to your guns. If there's one company that is interested in buying your company, I promise you there's another one as well. And the reason why I'm saying that is because at the same exact time I sold my company, the gentleman Seth, who I had mentioned before, literally a week before I sold my company, sold his HVAC company to another venture capitalist firm. And they are the absolute antithesis of whom I sold to. I try not to be jealous. I try not to look too deeply into the past, but he's still working for them and he loves them. And this company followed through with everything that was written into the asset purchase agreement. It was, like I said, the absolute antithesis of my situation.
I think this is a really great point.